The antique clock stood tall and foreboding in the corner of Martin Grayson's living room. It was an ornate monstrosity, with intricate carvings of angels and demons battling across its mahogany frame. Its brass pendulum swayed ominously, ticking away like the heartbeat of the house. Martin had inherited it from his estranged grandfather, a man he'd barely known, along with a cryptic note: "Protect the time. Protect yourself." At first, Martin dismissed the clock as just another eccentric heirloom. But on the first night it struck 13 times at midnight, he jolted awake. Each chime was louder, sharper than the last, reverberating through the walls like a dirge. By the time the final strike faded, the house felt unnervingly still. The following day, Martin tried to dismiss the eerie incident, blaming it on his overactive imagination. But when the clock struck 13 again the next night, strange events began to unfold. The air grew colder, shadows stretched unnaturally long, and faint whispers echoed in empty rooms. Curiosity turned to unease as he investigated the clock further. Hidden in its ornate carvings, Martin discovered small symbols etched into the wood. Symbols he later learned matched those found in old police files related to a string of unsolved murders within his family. The victims, spanning decades, had all died under mysterious circumstances. His grandfather had been the prime suspect in one case but was never charged. Digging deeper, Martin found an old journal tucked inside the clock's secret compartment. The entries were scrawled in his grandfather's trembling handwriting. "The clock knows. It sees. The 13th chime reveals what we fear most." That night, Martin watched the clock, determined to uncover its secrets. As the pendulum swung closer to midnight, his breath quickened. The first 12 chimes rang out, and then the 30th. But this time, it wasn't just a sound. The ornate glass face of the clock glowed with an eerie light, and an image appeared on the dial, an old black-and-white photograph of his living room. At its center was a figure, standing where Martin now sat. It was him. Beneath the image, the words, "Next target," burned into the brass plate. Panic set in. Was the clock predicting his murder, or orchestrating it? The whispers in the house grew louder, forming incomprehensible words that sent shivers down his spine. Martin's fight-or-flight instincts kicked in. He smashed the clock with a fire poker, but the wood didn't splinter. Instead, it seemed to absorb the blow. Desperate, he reread his grandfather's journal and found a chilling final entry. "The only way to break the chain is to face the time. When the 13th chime strikes, you must stop it, or it will claim you." The next night, Martin prepared. Armed with the tools and a growing resolve, he sat in the room, staring down the clock. Midnight approached. He felt the air tighten as the chimes began. Each strike rattled his bones, and when the 13th chime began, Martin lunged for the pendulum. He wrestled with the mechanism, feeling as though unseen hands were fighting back. Just as the chime was about to echo fully, he jammed the gears with a metal rod. The house fell silent, and the oppressive weight in the air lifted. But the victory was short-lived. The clock, now cracked but still standing, revealed one final image. A man in the shadows, standing just behind Martin. He spun around, but it was too late. A cold hand gripped his shoulder, and the last thing Martin saw was the clock's face, glowing with satisfaction. The clock remained in the living room, ticking quietly. At midnight, it struck 13 times again behind Martin. He spun around, but it was too late. A cold